Please let me know when you can see my screen.
Alright, I cannot see your screen
You
yet.
can mute yourself so that it doesn't.
I can see your screen.
Okay. So let's, okay, so let's get started. So when you want to build a project using HTML, CSS, and probably JavaScript, so we want to start this afresh. So I'm going to come to this center and click on new folder, and I'm going to create an entirely new folder that we're going to be working with. So this is the folder. I'm going to name it code SM. Okay. So I'm going to now open up my VS Code so that I can open it up there. So this is my VS Code, freshly opened VS Code. So I'm going to go to File, New Folder, and because I know that my new folder is in the desktop, it's on the desktop, that's where I created it. I click on Desktop, then Code SM, then Open, in order for me to open this new folder. Now we're going to be starting out with HTML. HTML contains what we call the content, the structure of the website. So I'm going to close up this get started. So I'm going to click on this new, and I'm going to say index.html, which is the first HTML page. Now HTML contains the structure of the website, and I'm going to start building out the HTML. So I'll try to open up this here so that I can be seeing the two of them. As I'm writing on the VS Code, I want to be able to see the project on the other side. So I'm going to use Control B to close this out so that I can be seeing what I'm doing on this other side. Okay. So I'm going to be using what we call Semantic HTML. Semantic HTML. In HTML5, there is this introduction of more tags in Semantic HTML. Semantic simply stands for tags that have meaning. Like if you're designing and you're using tags like div, you see many people use div. You can use div in different places. With div can contain some elements, but this div does not have a meaning. You have other tags like span. You can also have your span to contain some element, but span does not have meaning. But we're going to be using tags that have meaning. Tags like section. We're going to be using tags like header. This is what they call semantic HTML. We're going to be using tags like article. So when you use tags with that has meaning like header.
I was disconnected before now.
Okay. So let me start afresh.
A call came in to my phone, so it disconnected the network.
Okay, let me start afresh. You can mute back now. Let me start afresh. So I said we are going to be starting out with the HTML, which is the structure and content of the website. Before we get to CSS, we will be styling the website. So I said that we're going to be using semantic elements in our HTML. We're going to be using semantic HTML tags or semantic HTML elements. And these semantic HTML elements are when you're using tags that have meaning. Like if you want to build out the header, you're using tag like header. If you want to put something that is in the form of news or article, you're going to be using this very tag known as article. If you want to talk about the footer, write code that surrounds the footer, you're going to be using this tag known as footer. So this is what we call semantic element. So this is against using things like, say you want to build out your footer, you're putting it in a div. So a div can contain anything. So we are not using div and we are not using span. We're actually going to use them, but not in the way that we would have used them without using this. So instead of putting your footer in a div, you use the footer tag for that. Now, if you want to have a nav bar, instead of putting it in a div, we can also have this nav, which is also a tag. So all these are known as semantic elements, unlike these ordinary elements in HTML. So we're going to be using semantic elements because we want the browsers to be able to, even if it can be able to read out, the browser will be able to understand the type of elements you're putting in, and it's very, very good for screen readers and other things. So semantic here, semantic simply means elements with meaning, elements with meaning. So all these other ones are known as non-semantic. They are known as non-semantic. So they are known as non-semantic elements. Whereas these ones that have meaning, by writing them, you already know what they mean. They are known as semantic elements. These ones are known as non-semantic elements. So other semantic elements include things like table, because once you put the table tag, you already know you're trying to build out a table. Another very important one is form. So once you're putting in form, you already know you're building out your form. So these are the tags that we're going to be using in this our project, because we want this to be a standard project. We don't want it to be an ordinary project. So we want it to be a standard project. We have other semantic elements like aside. That is when we want to write something that will be aside, that will be similar to what you have on the main page. You also have your main. So all these are things that you can have inside the body of your HTML. So very, very important. These are what we are going to be having. So I'm going to quickly take this whole thing and put them as a comment before I can now start out building our website, so that we can understand whenever we start using them. So these are what we are going to be using. So now, from what we learned, we know that when we want to start up our HTML, we can simply start with the doc type HTML. That's the first thing, showing that this is HTML5 that we're going to be using. Then we can now write our HTML tags, opening and closing tags. So now, inside this HTML, we are supposed to have our head. Then below the head is where we have the body. So this is our typical HTML. So we have the HTML tag, the head and the body are the major divisions. Now, it is expected that inside the body, that's where you have all these, our semantic HTML. That is where we have all of them, inside this body. Because what is inside the head is actually what will come up here. So let me give an example. We'll come inside the head. What the head normally contains is the title. So I'm going to put the title, and the title is going to be Code SM, Code Social Media. So I'm going to write it like this, Code SM. So if I save this now and right click in the middle and say Open with Live Server, so it's going to open up this so that we see where we are expected to see the code SM, which is the title. That is why I'm trying to say that every other thing should be in the body, because the major thing that is in the title in the head is actually the title. But it has other things apart from the head, but the head is the main thing that is there. So apart from the head, we can have the author, the meta, and the other things, which we are going to include with time. But very importantly, the title is what comes up. Okay, so very important. Once I save and open with live server, I should be able to see these. Okay, see it's opening up here. You can see it here, code SM. It just opened here. code SM. So if I make it big, you see this is where the title appear, code SM. Okay, so I'm going to make it small again. Then I want to start using the um the semantic CSS, the semantic HTML, very important. So let's get to use the semantic HTML. Okay, so now for the semantic HTML, the first thing you're going to be having is the header, and the header is supposed to have your heading, which is typically your logo and the name of the website. So I'm going to have header. Then inside the header, I'm going to have h1. It's always good you have just one h1 in your project. Only one h1. So here I'm going to call it code social media. So that is the first one. So you can see it come out here, code social media. This is a semantic HTML. So once you host this, the browser should be able to know that this is the header. And because it's in H1, it's going to know, the search engine is going to be able to crawl and tell us more about this website. Like this website is all about code social media. So H1 is always good. You have just one H1. You know that you can have H1, H2, up down to H6. H1 is the biggest, but it's always good you have just one H1 in your project. So that is very, very important. Now, after the H1's semantic HTML, the next thing we are going to be having is the section. So section is another semantic HTML, even though we didn't have put it here. So it's important that I put it here. So with section, you can use it to put any type of any section of a website. So in section, what is very important in section is that you have to assign a section. You have to assign it what we call an ID or a class to describe what the section is all about. So section is majorly a section of a website. So it's also very, very important that we have it. So I'm going to come down here and assign a section to this website. So this section majorly, I want it to have a class. This section is going to have a carousel. So I'm going to give it a class of carousel because I want to put a carousel that will be under this header, carousel that will be moving. At a point, we also put a logo beside this one or in front here. So I want to have something like a banner with a carousel that will be moving. So I'm going to call this header, I'm going to call it a carousel. Okay, so that is what this section will be all about. And this section is going to have an image of the banner. So you know the tag for image, I'm going to say img, which is the tag, and I'm going to say src, which is the source. And this image is going to be coming, I'm going to have an image folder which I've not created. So I'm going to create it and say comma, I'm going to call it carousel dot, could be a PNG file, it could also be a JPEG file. Always, whenever you have your image, always give it an alt. So it's going to have an alt. In case if there is no image, what is it going to show? So it's going to simply going to say carousel image. Okay. So that is the carousel for us there. So that is what you can have in a section. So inside this section also, I want to have a write-up, but this write-up I want to be able to style it. So it is here now that I can use a non-semantic HTML like div. So I'm going to give it a class of, because I want to style it in CSS later, I'm going to give it a class of welcome. That's the class name that I will use in styling it, because this is typically a uh, welcome tag or a welcome write-up. So in writing it, I'm going to simply use H2 for this. Then I'm going to simply say welcome. That's what I will say here, welcome. Then inside here, if you want to use an inline tag that is not blocked like span, you can also use it here. So I can say welcome to, then I can bring in a span. But before then, I want to first of all break this and then bring in a span, because I want it to be on this. So I'll bring in a span, and in the span I can simply say code social media, code social media. Okay, so this is exactly what I want to have. So if I save this now, you can see the image here. Because I've not imported any image, that's why I'm having carousel image, which is the alt value. So the alt value is always important. So I have here welcome to code social media, which is what I have here. Okay, so that is this section. So after this very section, I'm going to bring in the links. That's the next thing I'll bring in. And in order for me to bring in the links, I'm going to click down again and bring in another semantic HTML. And the name of the semantic HTML I'm bringing it here is the nav, because the links are normally brought in through the navs. So it is the navigation bar that brings in the link. So I'm going to say nav. Then this nav, I'm going to assign it a class so that I can be able to style it in my CSS. So I'm going to simply say class is equal to, and this nav is going to be my main nav. So I'm going to simply call it main nav. So remember, it's always good to assign class when you want to style from CSS, okay? Then just inside this nav, I'm going to have my another list, which is the main tag that you use in bringing in your, anytime you want your link. It's not always good to just write out your ahrefs. It's always good to put them in links. So inside this link, I'm now going to have my various, inside this another list, I'm going to have my various lists, which are my LIs. So I'm going to have a couple of LIs. So for this very first one, I'm going to be having the ahref inside it. So you can have, say, how many links you want to bring in. So say I want to bring in 4 links. So I'm going to have the 4 links there. So it's inside the links that I'm going to now talk about the how people can be able to link up. So I'm going to be using the ahref. So for this very first one, I'm going to be linking it to, if you want to be able to join these social media at some point, so this is where you're going to go. So I'm going to call it join.html. Okay, and I want to be able to style this at some point. So I'm going to say, give it a class of join. You see the way the names of the classes is very related to what I want to be using them for at some point. So it's very, very important. So here I'm gonna say sign up. So once anybody clicks here, you should be able to sign up. So I'm gonna have a similar thing for this one, but this time around, I'm not gonna be saying join. I'm gonna be just be giving small news about this website, this social media website. I'm gonna be giving a small news. and I'm not going to be styling this one. While I want to style the join is because I want it to be like a button so that somebody can click it as a button. So for this very one, I'm going to simply say latest news. So you can see the latest news by going to this link. You can see the link, sign up, latest news is already there. So I'm going to pick up this very one, just the way it is here. Put it down here. But here I'm going to say something else. So if this is a social media where you can learn, so I'm going to have here learn for students that are connecting to this, because this is going to be a social media for developers, coders. So you can come here to code up, to learn about coding. So I'm gonna say here, learn coding, okay? So I'm gonna come down here again, paste it out, and have these about contact us. So I'm gonna say contact. Then inside here, I'm gonna simply say contact us. And I'm gonna save this out. So we have our list here. So this is going to be our links to the various page. So at some point we are going to create these various pages. So you can see the way we are laying this out. Very important. This is H1. This is our image tag that is in a section. These are this section has this image tag with this welcome message. And now we have our nav. So this header section and our nav. So we are using the semantic HTML for all this. So the next thing we are going to be having now is our the main body of the website. So we'll come down here and we use the next semantic HTML known as main for that. Very, very important. So there's a semantic HTML known as main. So inside this main, we can use another semantic HTML known as article. Okay, so we are going to be having an article here. So I'm going to say article. So that is what I'm going to be having. So inside this article is going to be having a section of something that has to do with these code social media. So here I'm going to simply say something like I'm going to use H1 here. Okay, there's always only one H1. So it's good you use H2. So inside this use H2, I'm going to have something like coding hackathons. Okay, so you can see it here now. So this is the main body, and we are having here coding hackathons. So under this H2, we are going to have a write-up about this coding hackathon. And you know, whenever you want to have a write-up, it's always good to use the P tag. So you can see now in these social media come out, we have hackathons to help developers grow their skills in programming. Okay, so that's what we have there. So I'm gonna save out. So you have it here in this social media. We have hackathons to help developers grow their skills in programming. So this is important. So I'm gonna make this. So that is the main article there. So under that, I'm gonna be having a couple of images because I want to style this to make it look uh, pretty good at some point. So let's have an image. So anytime you want to have a list, it's always good you put your list inside another list. So I'm gonna say UL because I want to have a list of images. That's why I put it in UL. It's always good you put it on other list. And once you put UL, the next thing is to put LI. So you can put as many LIs as possible inside your UL. But inside this very LI, I simply want to have my image. So I simply say img src, which is the source. And the source is going to be coming from the image folder, like I did before, img. And inside the image folder, I'm going to be having my images. So I'm going to call it pic1.png. Okay. Then once I call it pic1.png, I'm always going to give it an alt value. So I'm going to say picture 1, so that once the picture is not there, at least it will have something to write even without the picture. That's why we normally put this alt. So alt is always very, very important. Okay, so I'm gonna save this. You see now pick 1 here because there is no picture. We are gonna put this picture at some point. So I'm gonna copy this exactly and put it down here and have this one as picture 2, and here have it as picture 2. So we are using what we call using semantic HTML for all this. Okay, so that is the main section. So we can have other sections like the footer section down here. So I'm gonna come down here and now have my footer section, which is also a semantic HTML. So inside this footer, I'm gonna simply use a p tag, and in this p tag, I'm simply gonna say copyright 2022, and this is code social media, and I'll save this. Okay, you can see copyright code social media. So this is a typical use of um, semantic HTML. So I can also bring in any section. So one good thing about section is that section is the one you can always use as many times as possible. So I can come here and still bring in another section under this main. So I can bring in as many sections as possible on that main. So this, my footer, I'm gonna give it a class so that I can simply style this footer later. So I'm gonna call it copyright. So that's the class I'm giving that footer, so that I'll be able to style it at some point. So this section that I want to bring in, I'm gonna give it a class so that I can be able to style it at some point. So I'm gonna call it join. That's the name of the class. So here under this section, I'm gonna use h2. It's always good to use h2 to be the header of this. So here I'm gonna say sign up to join today. That is the name of this. So under it, I'm now gonna have my p tag. And inside the p tag, I'm gonna simply say fill in the form below to join, because I want them to fill up a form. So I'm gonna say fill in the form below to join. So once I say, you can see sign up today, fill in the form below to join. So under this, I'm gonna bring in the form, which you know also the form is a semantic HTML. So I'm gonna say form. I'm gonna say form. So inside the form, I'm gonna simply have an input type of text or type of email. So let me just use email because I don't want to write plenty input elements. Input type email. Name is always equal to what the type. So input type email, name equal to email. So the name is always, whenever you want to connect it to database, is important. So let's have a placeholder to tell the user what to put in. So I'm going to have a placeholder that says type in your email and hit the enter key. So it's going to simply say type in your email and hit the enter key. Okay, so that will be the placeholder, and I'm going to make this required so that anybody that comes in here will fill this. So I'm going to say required, and I close it out, and I will now save. So you can see it here. Type in your email and hit the enter key. Okay, so that is our website. That is our simple website written in purely semantic HTML. So the next thing will be to bring in these images. So let me try and bring in some images. So you can see the first image, the name is carousel.png. The other ones are pick 1 and pick 2. So all of them are inside a folder known as img. So I'm going to simply get up to here, create a new folder known as img. So that's how you create a folder. Use this one to create a folder, this one for a file. So I'm going to put in 2 images here in order for me to have what I want. So I'm going to simply, I can minimize this. So you can see some images here, screenshot images. So I have 3 of these here. So I'm going to click and hold, and I'm going to select the 3 of them. So once I copy them, I'm going to copy them and put them inside the folder. So let me minimize this, get to the folder, codesm. Once I open codesm, I can now put them inside this img folder. Then I'll make sure that I rename them according to what they are there. So I'll rename this first one. First one is carousel.png. It's already a PNG file. You can see it from here that it's a PNG file. Then this one I'm gonna rename also to pick1. It's already a PNG file. Then this one I'm gonna rename to pick2. Okay, so I have that. I can now come back. Okay, so you can see it's already there. The pictures are there, but they are massive. So I should be able to reduce them a little bit. So let me get to my VS Code. Okay, so this is my website now. If I scroll, I can see the pictures. Nice one, but they are very huge. So I'm going to use CSS to style them, to make them smaller. So everything about styling will be in the CSS file. So I'm going to create a new file here known as CSS. I'm going to click here. I'm going to have style.css. Okay, so this is where I will be styling this website. But very importantly, before I style, I want to bring in some of the things that should be in this head tag in our HTML. It's not always only the titles that should be there. So I should also have something like the meta, because we are trying to build a website that can be search engine scrollable. So this meta, the name, meta can have many things. So for this very one, we're going to be having viewport for this meta tag, and to be having a content that will specify say the width, which will be equal to the width of the device, that is device width. Okay, so apart from that, you have initial scale to be 1.0. Okay. Okay. So that is that. Then we're going to now link this up. So how do we link up the style sheet? We are going to be using the link tags with the attribute of rel. And what kind of relationship does this have with the style sheet? The style sheet is simply a style sheet. We are now going to put the href. The href is simply going to tell us that this style sheet is actually inside this very folder, and the name is style.css. Okay, so I'm going to save this. Okay, so that is some of the things that should be there, but those are not the only things. So inside the head, like I said, it's not supposed to have only the title. We can also have another meta tag that is telling us about the character set. We call it char set. So the character set that will be used in this is known as the UTF-8. That's the character set. So that's another thing that could be in the head. And inside this head, you can also have another meta tag. So you can have as many meta tags as possible. Once you put a meta, just assign it a name and describe what you want to bring in. So for this one, I'm going to be bringing in author. So what is going to be the content of this author? The author is simply going to be Augustine. So you can put your own name there. So with this now, the browser is able to read the person that created this work. Okay, so that's another meta tag. You can see we have meta of viewport, we have author, we have character set. But those are not the only one. You can also have the very important one that search engine will use, which is the meta tag with the name of description. So with this description, search engine will be able to know what this website is all about. So the name here is description. So what is the content of this description? So every meta is always having like name and content. So take note. So here I can say this is a social media website for coders. So this is a description of what this website is all about. And it's very, very important because search engine is going to use this too. So that whenever somebody searches for website for coders, it will be able to bring up this your website. But you can see all the things we are writing, they are not coming out here because they are all in the header. The only thing that comes out in the website that you put in the header is the title, which is what is here, code SM. Every other thing is used by a search engine for optimization, crawling, and some other things. Okay, so this is our complete HTML that uses what we call the semantic tags or semantic HTML elements like the header, the article, the footer, the nav, the table form, aside section, and also uses the normal non-semantic one which you see in many websites like the div and the span. So I'm going to allow you to do this so that we can style this up and see the way it will look after styling. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. So let me stop sharing. I'll allow you to quickly do this because I want this to be a complete big list. Okay, before I stop sharing, I'm gonna create these various other pages. So we have the news.html, news.html. Um, okay, we also have these join.html. So I'm gonna have it join.html. Um, we also have learn and contact us.html. So I'm gonna have learn.html, and finally I'm gonna have contact us with contact.html. So those are the other pages. So I'm gonna close them up because I don't want to use them now. But at some point we're gonna develop them. Okay. So quickly build it out. Let me then share your screen. Let me see what you